Hello, and welcome to Neverwinter Nights, and this will be part 33. Now, anyone following this series will probably have noticed that I've had to take a few steps backwards, and there's a very good reason for that. This series was meant to be a synopsis series, which of course is to go through the story, not necessarily skipping it, but blowing through it relatively quickly, and still maintain the essence of the story. But because I like to record ahead, I was recording quite a bit ahead in order to... when I start playing this game, I start enjoying it. I can not play it for 2-3 years, then I start playing it, and I just want to beat it. And that's just the way I roll. And I actually ended up completing the game. And that ended up with 118 episodes in total, which was far more than I intended for this series. I did not expect it would have been that long. But Chapter 2 specifically took up nearly 52 parts. Obviously of varying lengths between 20 and 30 minutes. And that felt like it was a touch excessive.
I'll have your life.
So what I have done is I have scrapped all that recording that's been done, which is, yeah, well, 40 hours worth or so, because, and then reloaded back at the end of Chapter 1 and carried on from there. With the point being to play through the game again. Doesn't bother me at all. I quite enjoy the game, and it's no biggie for me to do this kind of thing. But be a lot more harsh towards what I cut out. Having the main story elements definitely in, because I mean that is the story of the game. But something like side quests likely just show picking them up and the last phase of their completion and the rewards given, and that kind of stuff. Because, as was mentioning before, Chapter 2, it contains an awful lot of running through caves and beating up orcs, and there's an awful lot of them, and they offer no resistance, no opposition, they give no experience of any kind, and it's just half an hour running around punching orcs, which probably doesn't make for very interesting viewing. So that is the purpose of this video, is to be an update on what I want to do going forward with this series. Feel free to let me know if you have any interest in me just carrying on the old way. I can still do that. I am deliberately left myself in a position where I could resume doing things what I've been doing up until now. But I just think for the flow of the series and for the sanity of the average viewer, having a series that's not necessarily being uploaded for over 2 months, 10 episodes per week, might be more enjoyable. For instance, this part here specifically was meant to be part 33 and 34, but I squeezed them together into a single, slightly longer part. But in order to make this update as well, I decided to do that way, and then carry forwards with the very heavy edited cutting, or heavy edited versions, I should say. Sorry. Going back to the game, we just spoke to a demon. Helm's Hold got a guardian, and of course that guardian would have been very unhappy with Desther and his minions doing naughty things, so they promptly unsummoned the guardian and summoned a demon in its place. Well, they tried to. They never completed the summoning of the demon. And the demon, we just spoke to him lightly, and he wants us to complete the summoning. Telling us that there's a book that will give us instruction on how to complete the ritual. But of course, we are good people, we are a nice person, we are lawful good and all that stuff. We don't necessarily want an evil demon being a permanent resident of Helm's Hold. So there is another book to be found, which will summon the Guardian of Helm's Hold. Because of course the book summoning the evil demon can also be used to banish it. So that is what we're going to do. We are going to banish the evil demon and find the book for the Guardian and get that re-summoned. And that's why I'm scouting around for now, because I forgot where the book was, even though I know where it is. It's a bit silly. Something else I will change in the video series is that when I completed the game I wasn't necessarily at the level I was expecting or hoping to be. And I can attribute that to the fact that having a follower, it costs 20% of all the experience you earn while they are still standing, which is not necessarily an awful lot. They tend to keel over quite easily, and to be honest, they don't necessarily benefit you that much. So the intention is to play this game without the follower as much as possible, just finding their specific items and get their items, progressing their stories. And I might showcase Lino's full story, because I mean that is still the follower I would go with, and the only follower I truly find enjoyable. I suppose Dalen is okay as well. Shaman is a bit self-centered, but I mean they're fine by themselves. Our monk friend is perhaps a bit eerie, but I mean I'm quite happy overall by how the followers are have been designed or set up and all that stuff. But they soak 20% of any experience you earn while they are around, except for quest experience. And I think that playing without a follower will hopefully gain me the level I was expecting to reach at the end of this game. So, going forward, the main quest will get a bit more time in the sun, but something like side quests I will showcase them being picked up, and then I will likely only showcase any vital steps in those side quests, like the last half a level of a dungeon that you need to clear in order to reach the bad guy or find the person you're trying to save, or whatever else it might be. It's just to get some of the tediousness out of it, because of course it is a game about fighting. There's an awful lot of fighting in this game, and every single enemy you defeat gives a bit of experience. Depending on your level, they will get more or less experience, and of course, getting more experience for defeating enemies is cool, except for the fact that it also means that you start becoming higher level than them, and then you stop getting the higher amount of experience because your level has increased. So, in that regard, you will often find that against a lot of enemies you will get the minimum experience this game will give you, which is 4 experience per kill. That is an indication that the enemy is considered to be effortless compared to you. Despite the fact that some of them can be rather brutal and still be a lot more than effortless, but apparently it is a straight level versus hit die comparison, and that's the way it works. Punching our way into all the book that will summon the Guardian of Helm's Hold. Of course, undead always fun to fight, especially those who can trade levels even, and assume all those bodies lying around was almost guaranteed to be a trap. Not much of a trap, it was the most obvious trap ever. There may as well be a sign on the front door saying this is a trap. Of course, the bodies came alive because, well, Helm's Hold currently is still under an evil influence, so we just have to let ourselves be surrounded by a bunch of zombies and take our sweet time getting them beaten down. Again, when it comes to editing, I have deliberately kept a lot of, or not a lot, but a certain amount of fluff in this part specifically to give me the time necessary to talk about the changes made to the series going forward. Of course, it loses a bit of that in the moment live commentary where you respond instantly to something, but at the same time, what I found with what I had already recorded was I was trying to salvage, because I mean it was a lot of hours that had been recorded. I was trying to salvage it, but it became a mess because, of course, when you are sitting and playing a game and you're trying to be entertaining at the same time, you sit and commentate on various things and all sorts of things related to whatever you experience in the game, and you start talking about something and then you get away from it, and then 3 episodes later you pick up on that subject again. Maybe something dawned on you or whatever, and if I was trying to salvage what I had already recorded, then I would find myself in a position where I would lose probably 2/3 of any continuation of what I had already started, which of course wouldn't be very useful to anyone. Skeletal mages. Every single mage-like caster in this game likes to cast a sanctuary or invisibility on yourself, or on themselves even. Meaning, of course, that you can't see them. And that is where blind fighting definitely helps an awful lot, because you do not get penalized for fighting them when they are invisible. And if you move close enough, you can sort of sense them, because of course being able to fight in blinded means that you still maintain your awareness of any opponent that is invisible. And it's not a easy invisibility, but it removes quite a few of the penalties that you have, and anything that can cast anything will have some sort of sanctuary or invisibility. It's without fail. So we should be finding the book.
Have at thee!
Fake Almighty. Let's see how he fares when he's spending the time lying on the ground. Are you having fun? I do like to cycle between knockdown and stunning fist, because of course when you are in melee to a knockdown opponent, you have +4 to your hit roll, meaning of course that they're infinitely easier to hit. They can still fortitude save against your stunning fist, but quite a few enemies can be completely and utterly neutralized by doing that kind of trick. Oh, check out a trap. And here is the book of the Book of Home, it's called, which is the one used to summon the Guardian. No, I don't know whether it's just me being unlucky, or it is the game trying to safeguard against abuse of some sort, but something I found completing the game, because I did pay attention to dice rolls and trends and things happening and all that stuff. Oh, by the way, Mr. Demon's going to be very, very happy about the fact that we unsummon him. He's going to love us forever. Just, yeah. Oh, of course, the Guardian of Household. And as reward for that, you get a decent chunk of experience, but you also get an offer of some sort of boon that can be information, magical item, or whatnot. If you're being modest and reject any reward, you will still be given a period of wisdom +1. I think that is some sort of indication of you summoning the enemy. I was about to say the Guardian was quite a wise decision. So Has he got enough experience to level up? Which is always nice. Elemental resistance takes off 15 damage from all elemental attacks against you, which is definitely not something to be scoffed at. But let us do some leveling. And of course, the usual rules apply about going for maximum hit points. And I will be cutting out reaching that, or the time wasted reaching that point, I should say. Defeat. It's time to go for some mobility. You get a feat at levels 3, 6, 9, 12, 15, and 18. And in the case of the feats I am going for, I want to end up getting spring attack, but I also want to get improved critical, unarmed combat, and toughness. But since we just got mobility now, at 12 we will be going for improved critical, at 15 we'll go for spring attack, and 18 go for toughness, assuming that something that becomes relevant during the playthrough of this series. Anyway, as I was saying before concerning trends in dice rolls, I just find that for some bizarre reason my monks seem to roll on average significantly lower when trying to do knockdowns. It's probably just me. It's probably just me being overly aware of it, but it just felt like the game was just no, you're trying to knock an opponent down. Anyway, Fenthick.
Here I am. He's a traitor.
Fenthick, of course, is still completely flustered and surprised and gobsmacked by the fact that his beloved friend Desther has turned on him and turned on Neverwinter. And he realizes that Neverwinter is probably not going to be overly happy about the fact that he looks like he's been supporting Desther through and through. He's also aware of the fact that Arabeth probably wouldn't be overly keen on the fact that he's been so adamant a supporter of Desther, and he doesn't feel like facing her. But he gave us the information we need about where Desther might be located, so of course we are going to be chasing Desther because he is the target for this chapter. And there was an editing cut here because this room contains a bodak, and apparently a bodak has a death gaze, and my character managed to fail this the saving throw against death about 4 times, so that was always good fun. Quick save, quick save, quick save. Anyone watching the series or having played this game themselves will probably realize and appreciate that quick saving is vital. It seems excessive, and for some people it might be, but the thing is, the next room you go into, if you fail a saving throw, you could be wiped out. It doesn't matter how good your saving throws are, you will still roll 1. I know there's an in-game setting where you can prevent ones from being automatic failures, but at the same time, if you disable that, then ones will not be automatic failures for enemies either, so it's a double-edged sword. You don't necessarily want it to happen to you, but you still want to benefit from it happening to the enemies, so it's one of those. You have to endure it if you want to take advantage from it as well. A trap chest. Hardly surprising. Probably heal, just in case, you know. Yeah, that's a good chunk of damage. Survived. Of course it's locked, so I shall blunt my fists. I shall harden my fists on knocking a chest. That's what I meant to say, but it was very, very difficult to communicate with things called words. A cloak. Section versus law. The alignment or worldview specific cloaks. It has a +5 deflection armor class against lawful enemies, but you are not going to face an awful lot of lawful enemies. The one I got at the moment is against chaotic. This is more likely to be what you bump into. You can't tell what alignment has, or what alignment individual enemies have. You can assume, but Dungeons & Dragons is extremely good at having a lot of enemies that you would assume would have a certain alignment, not having that alignment. A lot of evil enemies are either lawful or neutral evil, which is rather interesting, and that means, of course, when you have protection that's based on, or damage sources which are based on the lawful, neutral, chaotic spectrum, you will find that you are surprised by how little you can actually affect. It's much easier good or evil, because a lot of enemies are inherently good or evil. Oh, Desther's room. It's full of undead. We should probably get rid of those first. Don't worry, Desther is quite inactive at the moment. He's protected by these summoned things that you need to start taking out in order to get him to be engaged into the fight. And yes, our level gainers. I'm fairly sure my monk loses a level temporarily. That is what you got restoration scrolls for, to counteract level losses. The best way to work out, what's easiest way I find out to work out whether someone is good or not, or evil or not, I should rather say, is to play Paladin and try to rely heavily on Smite Evil, and you will discover that probably half the target you are trying to smite will be unaffected, because of course it can only smite evil, or if you're an anti-paladin you can smite good, but for the purpose of this, we lost a level, as I expected. Smite evil from paladins, which adds quite a bit of damage to their attack against evil creatures, and a lot of the times they will just fail, because they are not evil. So anyway, dealing with these undead and trying to get ourselves restored, because I mean, playing with one level less than normal is not exactly ideal. It's not so bad for a melee character, but casters, they lose spells they have memorized, and of course if you are relying on a certain spell that you suddenly don't have available anymore because you just lost level, is a bit of a pain. So we got our level back. And yeah, I got mauled, what can I say? It wasn't a death spell, nope. I'm fairly sure it was death spell or paralyze, whatever. Didn't do too well in that fight, so I decided to reload and then use the potions, because of course too good to use syndrome is something that's a very, very bad idea. The too good to use syndrome, of course, is that you have an item and you want to use it, but you want to use it at the right time, and then you never find yourself being in the right time, because what if I use it now and then face something tougher? so I would have more benefit out of using it. Meaning, of course, you end up not using it at all. Hence the so good to use syndrome. But I screw up because, of course, we still have a few of his individuals standing around, and every single time you knock one of them down, you remove a buff from him. I completely forgot about that aspect, which is a bit silly. And normally I would flatten the caster, because of course once you defeat the caster, any summoned minions will be despawning. But a skeletal warrior that can crit you for about 20-25 damage, I didn't necessarily feel it was desirable to have that taking shots at me while I was trying to deal with Desther. The main thing is to try and prevent them from casting. I'm not overly concerned about spells such as Flame Strike, because of course we have the Sash of Shimmering, which gives us a certain amount of magical spell resistance. It's called, it used to be called magical defense. That's why I keep referring to it as magical defense, or magic resist even. Ha! Wow. But anyway, it's not something you necessarily can rely on. But of course, a lot of those spells also allows for reflex saving throws, and that is something I'm much more prepared to rely on. Probably foolishly, because I'm not building decks. One thing I can spoil, which wouldn't be much of a spoiler, is by having completed the game already very recently. Yet again, my wisdom-based monk was justified. You end up with a quite high armor class and a decent enough boost to your special abilities, so they will actually land quite a few times. And of course, the fact that the enemies can, just like you, roll one and automatically fail a saving throw. The Stunning Fist may not be spectacular, but if you can prevent someone from doing something for a round or two and you get a chance to heal in between, you have bought yourself the time you needed. Some of these hits ahead now, so we are going to be continuously knocking him down. And knocking him down again.
I will not fall to you!
You feel like you are doing an awful lot of damage without doing much to Desther the first time you fight him. Of course, there's a minor surprise in the fight. Come on. On your back. Just enough time to heal. I know it's cheesy, but you know what? It works. Because things like a knockdown are countered with discipline, and of course because discipline are not class skills for casters, most of them are unlikely to be able to resist it. So I'm busy identifying stuff before I talk to Desther.
Take your bow, friend.
So Desther is going to reveal to us that he's got the cure, and we can have it, of course. I mean, he's surrendered to the fate that awaits him. But the cure was nice and necessary, because it was him and his Helmites, which were blessing people, who effectively kept the plague going. When they had left or were defeated or whatever, the plague would eventually fade by itself. The cure will just accelerate the process somewhat, but the plague would fizzle by itself. But of course we tell him, because we are good old-fashioned adventurers, that we want to loot the bloody place. So we'll go around and loot the bloody place. There's nothing necessarily overly exciting, depending on what class you're playing. I'm quite happy with playing the monk, and it is still
Have at thee!
my favorite melee character, but there is some enjoyment out of playing a dual-wielding katana ranger, or even better, of course, a weapon master, which is very, very hard to play because it's a prestige class that you can pick up, which requires an awful lot of feats in order to qualify for, and only practical for fighters, basically, because the amount of feats required, and only fighters get bonus feats to the extent where it's even remotely practical to reach it. Fighters are definitely a very, very useful class and a very good class, but I've always found them to be a bit boring, even though being very, very powerful. Melee can be very interesting. Of course, using weapons and armor and all that stuff is good fun. I just think the things the monk gets as you level through and level up as for a more exciting class for me, and the novelty of punching people and stuff, cutting them with a sword. Well, not people, but enemies in general. Come on, hooray! Some acid damage, which of course we could always equip it and then use it to break chests, because of course, yeah. Long death +2. Yellows +3. I'm not happy about the fact that it's only doing what I like to call damage, but at the same time it does confer some more to hit, so I decided to equip them, because of course the extra to hit is always nice. But we are coming up on the end of this episode and the end of this chapter, and the end or the beginning of chapter 2 video will be played once we go and speak to Dexter. I was about to say Desther, and showcasing what fate awaits him. And when we come back, we'll be in chapter 2, and I hope people will accept the way I've decided to run the series from now on. And feel free to comment if you prefer the other way. But for me, thanks for watching. Take care. See you next time. Bye bye.
And the precious Lady Erebeth. Hurry with
Desther's punishment was brutal, but his death brought little satisfaction. The horrors of the Wailing Death could not be undone with his execution. Those that had suffered now turned on each other. They looked for someone to blame, and found it in Desther's closest friend, Fenthick. The letter of the law found him negligent, and he was hanged as a sacrifice to appease the bloodthirsty mob. If any thought the sentence unjust, they remained silent. Duty required all to act as one. It was not the time for divided loyalties. The cult behind Desther's treachery still had to be found. The hunt led to the coastal town of Port Last. From here, the heroes of Neverwinter would continue the search for those behind the Wailing Death, and vengeance would be taken.